No, not Chick-Fil-A. They got to Chick-Fil-A. No, I can't believe this is happening to me. Chick-fil-A, they're going woke. Yes, they've committed to diversity, equity, inclusion, this agenda. Oh boy, folks, I'm so sad. They've gotten to my precious Chick-fil-A. That was the only place, the one place that I thought was safe was Chick-fil-A. And I guess it's not anymore because we have the guy, he's in charge of Chick-fil-A. He's coming out here and he's saying, his name's Dan Cathy. He just goes full woke and he says that every white person should get on their knees and shine black people's shoes with a sense of shame and a sense of embarrassment for racial injustice. What? I mean, this is going beyond like diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is insanity. We have Chick-fil-A going woke. I'm sure this morning the PR person for Chick-fil-A woke up checking the social media and he has just got a migraine. He's taking the Tylenol, he's lifting the pill bottle, it's shaking, and he's dumping the pills out into his hands, and he's just taking the pills, and he's like, oh gosh, this can't be happening to me. Go woke, you go broke. Has Target taught you nothing, Chick-fil-A? All right, I've got a packed show for you. Good morning. I've got a lot of stuff to talk about. So last night I couldn't sleep. So I decided to stay up all night. And you guys better appreciate this because I'm telling you, it took me all night to become, I'm not an expert. I hate that word. It's not an expert, but I've read Supreme Court ruling after Supreme Court ruling about the 14th Amendment. So late in the middle of the night, I get a text and somebody's like, Donald Trump isn't going to be winning the primaries. How could he be going after the 14th Amendment like this? So if you haven't heard, Trump announced some plans to mitigate the border crisis by ending birthright citizenship for children of illegal immigrants. And he said this in a video, and I'm going to play the entire video for you. And if you're listening, I recommend you go watch it on Facebook Live. We're also on YouTube. We're on Twitter. We're on Rumble. You can find me anywhere. I'm going to share this video with you. It's Donald Trump, and he's making this announcement. Now, before you get all in a fuss here, folks, Donald Trump makes this announcement, and I have to explain the 14th Amendment because it was really hard for me to wrap my head around. I was under the impression always that the 14th Amendment said that if you are born here in the United States, it doesn't matter where you came from, doesn't matter who your parents are. If you're born here in the United States, then you have citizenship. That's something that I've always been kind of proud of America for. We are the only country who does that, but there's a reason why we're the only country who does that. And the 14th Amendment, they've been lying to us, folks. They've been lying to us since the 1800s. The purpose of the 14th Amendment, and it's pretty dang clear when you read the 14th Amendment and you read primary documents from the people who drafted that amendment up and who created that amendment. When you read primary documentation, they've been lying to you about what that 14th Amendment says. And these immigrant enthusiasts, these illegal immigrant enthusiasts, are sickening, and Republicans and Democrats, they've got it wrong. They've got it completely wrong. And Donald Trump, I'm going to say it, is a hero for trying to be the only, I think he's literally the only guy out there fighting for the Constitution in this way. The Constitution's very clear, and the 14th Amendment is pretty clear to me. And from my research last night, I think I understand now what's going on here, and I want to bring that to you. I've done a lot of research on that, and I think it's going to help you because you are going to see the talking head shows. They're going to say Trump's going after it. How is he constitutionalist? He's not going to win the primary. You've got the mainstream, the feeding frenzy. They're back. They're ready. I mean, it's Donald Trump derangement syndrome. It's Trump derangement syndrome all over again. So this is incredible. I'm going to be going through that next in the show. 50 teens. That's an estimate. Some people are saying 30. I'm seeing videos of close to 50. 50 teenagers caught on video assaulting 2 Marines. And get this, it's all over some fireworks. They were shooting fireworks into a crowd of people. These 2 Marines said, hey, please don't do that. And then they got jumped by 50 teens. I've got the story here. And then AOC having a complete meltdown. This is pretty funny. Over a parody account that's using her name. Kind of fun. It's marked parody account. So I really don't know what her problem is. It is clearly marked parody account. But she tweeted a warning to her followers. She was like, be careful about what you see. And all I've really got to say is that you should be careful if you're following the real account of AOC, because that is far more damaging to one's mental stability. This parody account is actually kind of funny. So we're going to get into all of that here on the Morning Buzz. Like I said, I am live on Facebook. We're going to dig into this video here of Donald Trump making this announcement that he wants to get rid of the birthright citizenship via executive order. Let's take a listen here.
Joe Biden has launched an illegal foreign invasion of our country, allowing a record number of illegal aliens to storm across our borders. From all over the world they came. Under Biden's current policies, even though these millions of illegal border crossers have entered the country unlawfully, all of their future children will become automatic U.S. citizens. Can you imagine? They'll be eligible for welfare, taxpayer-funded health care, the right to vote, chain migration, and countless other government benefits, many of which will also profit the illegal alien parents. This policy is a reward for breaking the laws of the United States and is obviously a magnet helping draw the flood of illegals across our borders. They come by the millions and millions and millions. They come from mental institutions. They come from jails, prisoners, some of the toughest, meanest people you'll ever see. The United States is among the only countries in the world that says that even if neither parent is a citizen nor even lawfully in the country, their future children are automatic citizens the moment the parents trespass onto our soil. As has been laid out by many scholars, this current policy is based on a historical myth and a willful misinterpretation of the law by the open borders advocates. There aren't that many of them around. It's amazing. Who wants this? Who wants to have prisoners coming into our country? Who wants to have people who are very sick coming into our country? People from mental institutions coming into our country? And come they will. They're coming by the thousands, by the tens of thousands. As part of my plan to secure the border on day one of my new term in office, I will sign an executive order making clear to federal agencies that under the correct interpretation of the law, going forward, the future children of illegal aliens will not receive automatic U.S. citizenship.
And then people lost their marbles. They were like, my gosh, how could he say that? Relax. Okay, first of all, I want to say that he is the leading contender in the GOP primary race. Sorry. President Donald Trump has announced this new policy initiative where we're going to see the children of illegal immigrants born here in the United States not eligible for citizenship. Now, my first gut reaction was, that's controversial. But then I was like, wait a second. I think back in 2019, he said the same exact thing, which he did. Citing the illegal foreign invasion of our country under Joe Biden, Trump said that under these new citizenship rules, all children of those illegal immigrants will be granted birthright citizenship. That's under Joe Biden and under this illegal foreign invasion. That's what they've been getting, is this birthright citizenship. And Trump wants to do away with that. On the first day of his presidency, you heard him, he said that he's going to sign an executive order to prevent birthright citizenship for children of parents who are illegal immigrants. This is good because New York right now, they are under a lot of strain. Chicago, under a lot of strain when it comes to the flooding of these illegal immigrants. And they've got a lot to deal with. There's illegal immigrants now being housed in colleges in the state of Illinois. Wilbur Wright College. I'm sure we're going to see it here downstate, central Illinois here anytime soon. But then they're, applying, these illegal aliens, they're applying for asylum only to be given court dates years and years down the road. So what's going on in these years, awaiting their court date to seek asylum in this country? They're given temporary work visas. They're taking away American jobs. That's just the facts. Okay, folks, Google, I've brought you this story multiple times. They laid off 12,000 people. The next day, they were filing for thousands and thousands of illegal immigrant work visas. I forget exactly what the work visa is called, but they're looking to replace their labor with cheaper labor, people who will do it much, much cheaper because they're here illegally. This leaves illegal immigrants legally in the country, legally able to work, which is an incentive to those seeking life in the United States by illegal means. So, I mean, being that they get these legal work visas, and then they overstay their visas, which is a whole nother conversation, but there is massive incentive for people to come here and to live life illegally in the United States, to live their lives out in the United States illegally. There's massive incentive. And one of those incentives is this birthright citizenship. And Trump, like I said, this is nothing new. Trump has always said that he wants to do away with this because it's unconstitutional and it's absurd. And I'm gonna get to that here because I did a lot of homework for you. Now, Trump had a similar policy here in 2019, saying at that time that the United States should get rid of the automatic citizenship that comes with the virtue of being born on American land in the event that the parents of those children are not legally here themselves. So he said this back in 2017. He had a similar policy. I don't quite think he made it to an executive order, got it through to an executive order, but he had a similar policy idea. It wasn't like written in stone, but it was out there. So this is just Donald Trump being Donald Trump. Nothing new. Now, this guy who is a lecturer and a researcher at Hillsdale College, and he's a former national security official to the Trump administration. His name is Michael Anton. It's important. And look this guy up because he's got an amazing op-ed out there. And it helped me understand why Trump is doing this and how illegal immigrant enthusiasts have totally not interpreted this 14th Amendment correctly. And I was always under the impression that the 14th Amendment, it just gave you citizenship if you were born here. But there are caveats here. There are two notions that you have to meet in order to be a citizen here in the United States. I have to take a break, but when we come back, I'm going to explain the 14th Amendment. Because it's important, and I didn't know it. I've been taught wrong by public schools. I will say that. I've been taught wrong. And when you read the actual primary documentation, and when you read the reason why the 14th Amendment actually exists, and I'm going to get to it here, then it becomes so much more clear, and you're like, wow, this is wild, because we have enthusiasts, we have these people who are lobbying our government and who are trying to just open up our borders in the name of this 14th Amendment, and that's not what the 14th Amendment says. I'm going to be right back. This is The Morning Buzz. Good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in to the live stream. Oh, man, I didn't sleep at all yesterday, folks, but please like and share the video. We are going to get into the 14th Amendment. I'm very excited about that because they're wrong. They've been wrong. You've been taught wrong. The 14th Amendment does not say that if you are a citizen, then you automatically get birthright citizenship. That's not how it works. There's a caveat to that. And I'm going to get into that caveat here coming up in just a little bit. It's kind of a special 6 o'clock hour. Not a whole lot of news in the 6 o'clock hour because I wanted to take the time to explain the 14th Amendment. And I'm going to throw this guy's name in the comments section. You guys have to look him up. He is amazing. His name is Michael Anton, and I've read a lot of his stuff. He has an amazing op-ed out there, actually in the Washington Post, which is kind of funny. And I read the Washington Post op-ed. I also read Dred Scott versus, Sanford. That it was in 1857. And this is a case where they made a decision that led to no Black American could ever be a citizen of the United States, which is completely insane to me. I can't believe that happened in 1857. Dred Scott versus Sanford, and there was a decision made, and ultimately it led to Black Americans not being able to be citizens in the United States, and it had to deal with slavery and the Civil War right at that time, and it denied citizenship to freed Black slaves. So that's why the constitutional amendment was necessary, because it had to overturn Dred Scott and define the precise meaning of American citizenship. Now, the definition is the amendment's first sentence. And I'm going to read this for you. All persons born or naturalized meaning legal immigration, born or naturalized in the United States and subject to jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. So there's two things here that are most important to talk about when discussing the 14th Amendment. I'm going to throw this in the comments. This is the written out version of the 14th Amendment. First, this amendment clarifies for the first time ever after this Dred Scott case that ultimately the decision made there was that no Black American could be a citizen in the United States after all of the slaves were free. Like, what happened to all of the free slaves? These newly freed slaves. There was the question of citizenship. Are they going to be United States citizens? And that court case in 1857, it was a terrible decision. So they had to make a constitutional amendment, and they did. This amendment clarifies for the first time federal citizenship actually trumps state level citizenship. So no state has the power to deny citizenship, hence none may dispossess freed slaves. So, I'd imagine it was a hard thing. Southern states who were fighting on behalf of the Confederacy. They might not have been too keen on having I'm being very, very light with that, right? They might have hated the fact that they had to grant citizenship to these freed slaves. They might not have wanted to do that. This constitutional amendment says you have to do that. Now, second, the amendment specifies two criteria for American citizenship, which is so important. So I on the screen, if you're watching on Facebook Live, you can see the written out version of the 14th Amendment. There are two criteria here. There's two criteria. First, birth or naturalization. So that is lawful immigration. Naturalization is lawful immigration. And being subject to U.S. jurisdiction. So you have to have either birth or naturalization, and being subject to U.S. jurisdiction. Now, what does that mean? Well, we know the framers of this amendment. We know what they meant by this because they told us. Now, actually, this guy, his name is Senator Lyman Trumbull of Illinois, which is kind of interesting. A cool little tidbit of history. Go Illinois, right? He was a principal figure in drafting this amendment. And he defined this whole being subject to U.S. jurisdiction as, quote, not owing allegiance to anybody else, that is, to no other country or tribe. You cannot be a foreigner. You have to have had some sort of allegiance to the United States. You have to have some sort of allegiance. And obviously, babies, they can't swear allegiance to the United States because they're not adults. And you have to enter in a mutually agreed contract almost with the United States. So you have to have some sort of pledge to the United States if you want to be a United States citizen. That's for not only the United States to know that you're loyal to the United States, but also for you. Why would you want to be in a country that doesn't want you here, or that you don't want to be in? So I'm going to explain it here on the Morning Buzz. Here we go. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. And 50 teenagers. I can't believe this happened. This is not a way to recognize our men and women who served this wonderful country of ours. This is terrible. It happened over Memorial Day weekend of all weekends. We had 50 teenagers. They've been caught on video assaulting 2 Marines. And get this, it was all over some fireworks. So these teenagers, they've been caught on video assaulting these Marines. The reason why they're assaulting these Marines, get this, it's because these Marines, these 2 guys, they went up to these teenagers, a few of them, who were blasting off fireworks into a crowd of people. And these 2 Marines said, look, guys, you can't do that. And then these guys gang up on him and they start beating him up. What's the world coming to? And then, of course, a little bit later, AOC, she's having a meltdown over this parody account that's using her name. She tweeted out this warning to her followers. Warning, 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 be careful of what you see from this parody account. It's clearly marked parody. It's clearly a parody account. She's freaking out about it. I think it's hilarious. The real account, in my opinion, is far more damaging than this parody account could ever be. But this is a pretty funny tweet that she put out there about the parody account. And it's like, this is what you're worried about? Aren't you a sitting member of Congress? Shouldn't you be, I don't know, fixing the country? We have record high inflation, AOC. Let's talk about the spending that you're doing there. We are going to get into that. Also, this Christian MLB player, Anthony Bass, I think is his name. So he puts out this video, and it's very disturbing. He's a Christian MLB player, and he released almost a hostage-style video. Now, earlier this month, he spoke out against the evil that Target and Bud Light are promoting, of course, through Dylan Mulvaney being the spokesperson of Bud Light. And then we've got Target literally promoting tuck bathing suits to children. Very disturbing. And of course, you've got the LGBTIBACDEFG folks out there. They're freakazoids, and they're ganging up on this Christian MLB player, who I don't even really like all that much. I mean, he's part of a team that's really not doing well. The Blue Jay Torontos, I guess. And he was forced to apologize in this hostage-style video. And I'm just thinking to myself, man, this guy's weak. He should have stood his ground. He's a Christian. Come on. So there's been massive conservative pushback against this obscene, and really what it is obscene sexualization of children from Bud Light and Target. And I say that about Dylan Mulvaney because he is literally promoting himself as a teenage girl, like a child. He's going through 365 days of girlhood, and he's acting like a prepubescent girl, which is bizarre. And he targets children in his videos, if you were to watch his TikToks. Now, we're fighting back against the wokeness, and I'm really excited about this because when this is talked about in history books, this is going to be a really cool thing to see because we are now living out a time where we see how the average consumer can effectively fight back against wokeness in corporate America. And still have a long way to go. But Toronto Blue Jays relief pitcher, he's a pitcher, I guess. He recently shared this video on Instagram where he explained the biblical perspective of why Christians should be boycotting Target and Bud Light, and then immediately released a hostage-style apology statement, I'm sure, after the LGBT whatevers freaked out and ganged up on him for posting this biblical perspective of why you should be boycotting Target and Bud Light. So we're going to get to that. Before we took the break, I was talking about Donald Trump and how he came out with this video announcing his plans to mitigate the border crisis by ending birthright citizenship for children of illegal immigrants. So I was always under the impression, probably because my school teachers always told me that this was the way the 14th Amendment was written. They lied. I was always under the impression that it doesn't matter where you came from, who your parents are, you are an American citizen if you are born here on our land. I always kind of took pride in that. But then my feelings began to change last night as I was reading. Couldn't stop reading. Stayed up all night doing this homework for you. You're welcome. 309-451-9299. You can be a part of the show by texting in or seeing me live on Facebook. We are going to be digging into this 14th Amendment and what it actually says, because you know it, I know it. We're going to see the talking heads out there. They're going to say, Trump's going after the 14th Amendment. Ah, how could he? Relax, okay? So he made the promise to sign an executive order if he were to become president in 2024, when he becomes president in 2024. He's looking good in the polls, folks. He's definitely the leading contender in the GOP primary race for president. Now, he said that he's going to sign an executive order to try to prevent birthright citizenship for children of parents who are here illegally, of their parents who are here illegally. You start to think about this, and you're like, yeah, this makes sense. This just makes sense. And he had a similar policy idea. This is not anything new. He's been talking about this since 2019. Saying that at that time in 2019 that the U.S. should get rid of automatic citizenship that comes by virtue of being born here in America and on American soil in the event that the parents of those children are not legally here themselves. Here's why. This is a really cool guy, a researcher at Hillsdale College. He's a former national security official for the Trump administration. His name is Michael Anton, and he did this amazing op-ed in the Washington Post, of all places. And he really helped me understand why Trump is doing this and how illegal immigrant enthusiasts have not interpreted this 14th Amendment correctly. So, the notion that simply being born here in the United States and within the geographical limits of the United States automatically grants U.S. citizenship is actually very absurd, and historically, constitutionally, and philosophically and practically just completely it's all wrong. So the purpose of the 14th Amendment, let's dig into some history here. And this is a special here on the Morning Buzz because I think it's important moving forward from today. And this is how you've been manipulated as a person, how I've been manipulated. And I didn't know it. I didn't know it. And I feel like a light bulb has been turned on for me. But the purpose of the 14th Amendment was to resolve the question of citizenship for these newly freed slaves. So it goes all the way back to the 1800s. Following the Civil War, some in the South insisted that states had the right to deny citizenship to freed men. So black slaves who were freed from slavery following the Civil War, there were some southern states not too happy about that, and they said, you know what? No, we are not going to allow them to be citizens here in the United States. So they cited 1857, this disgraceful Dred Scott versus Sanford decision. So that was their thing. They said, okay, we're not granting them citizenship in these southern states because of this court precedent, and they cited Dred Scott versus Sanford. Read through this. Basically, the decision made here is it says that no Black American could ever be a citizen of the United States, which is just gross, and it really humbles you as an American to understand that that's where we were in the United States back in 1857, where our courts, our high courts, ruled like this. They said the decision ultimately just said, you know what? No, Black Americans, no, they could never be citizens of the United States. That's what this decision said. So, of course, a constitutional amendment had to be born. That is the 14th Amendment. And it was necessary because it had to overturn Dred Scott and define the precise meaning of American citizenship. So what does it mean? Well, the definition is laid out for us in words. And I've written the words for you on the screen here if you're watching on Facebook Live. I'm on YouTube. I'm also on Rumble and on Twitter. You can find me anywhere. I'm going to read it for you. Here's how the 14th Amendment reads. All persons born or naturalized, that is, entering the country legally and going through the legal process in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Couple of things there that we got to break down in that amendment. The amendment clarified for the first time ever in the United States history that federal citizens, if you are a citizenship at a federal level, or if you're a citizen at a federal level, that supersedes your state level counterpart. So no state has the power to deny you citizenship if you have federal citizenship. Hence, this is, they couldn't kick out freed slaves from these southern states. So it addressed that issue back then. Second, this amendment, it specifies not one, but two criteria. There's two criteria here laid out for us. For American citizenship, you have to either be born here or you have to go through a legal process, lawful immigration. And this is the second criteria. You have to be subject to U.S. jurisdiction. So we know what the framers of this amendment meant by that because we have primary documentation. Isn't that really cool? And it gets even cooler, folks, because you're from Illinois. And the guy who laid out what that meant and subject to jurisdiction, the guy who lays this out is actually from Illinois, Senator Lyman Trumbull. And he is the Illinois senator, and he drafted up this amendment, and he defines this subject to jurisdiction part of the constitutional amendment as not owing allegiance to anybody else. No other citizenship, right? You just have the citizenship here in the United States. You don't owe your allegiance to anybody else. That is, that no other country or tribe. You don't owe your allegiance to anyone else. Then we've got a different senator. His name is Jacob Howard of Michigan, and he was a sponsor of the clause. And he further clarified that the amendment explicitly excludes from citizenship anybody born in the United States who are foreigners, aliens, who belong to families of ambassadors or foreign ministers. Yet for decades, folks, we have had U.S. officials led by immigration enthusiasts in and out of government, and they've acted as though the clause that I just cited for you in the amendment, subject to jurisdiction, means simply subject to American law. That is true to any tourist who comes here, but the framers of the 14th Amendment added that jurisdiction clause precisely to distinguish between people to whom the United States owes citizenship and to those whom it does not. It's very clear. The children of immigrants who came here illegally, it clearly does not, the United States did not owe them citizenship. The freed slaves, they definitely qualified. okay, because they didn't have allegiance to any other country. They're not foreigners. They were here. So birthright citizenship is what I'll call it. Scholars have called it a great magnet for illegal immigration. This magnet attracts not just millions of the world's poor, but also increasingly dangerous immigrants, people who come here for the maternity hotels. And I found this out. This is wild. They're called maternity hotels. And these are where pregnant Chinese tourists advertise openly in Southern California and elsewhere. These maternity hotels where you can go have your baby in the United States because we're a silly government and we're going to give them American citizenship. Yeah, this is why we're the only country that does this kind of stuff, because we've contorted and distorted the language of the 14th Amendment. The problem could be easily fixed. Congress could easily clarify this with some legislation. You know, they say that children of non-citizens are not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and thus not citizens under the 14th Amendment. But given the open borders the enthusiasm surrounding open borders of congressional leaders like AOC and people of other, I'm sure, other Republicans, right? It's unlikely that they're going to change this and clarify it for us, and not change it, just clarify, because it's pretty clear. Just needs some clarification. This, of course, makes sense why Trump has to do an executive order. And he has to specify to federal agencies that children of non-citizens are not citizens. I'm sorry, but this is really interesting, and I just want to, give Trump a round of applause here, because I think he's the only person really standing up for what the Constitution actually says. And why shouldn't the president act to defend the clear meaning of the 14th Amendment? Because the 14th Amendment is there historically because for a very important reason. It was for originally the freed slaves. I do want to cut to break. I'm glad that I ran through that today. A little bit of a special here on the Morning Buzz. I wanted to run through this 14th Amendment. I stayed up all night researching it. Have you got some questions? Do you have some thoughts? Are you are you for birthright citizenship? Do you think that just because you're born here geographically on American soil, that automatically should give you citizenship? After reading the 14th Amendment to you, do you think the 14th Amendment says that? I'd love to hear from you. Give me a call. Text in 309-451-9299. Hey, good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be sure to like and follow the page. Subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. How did you guys like that? I really, I was really hesitant because it wasn't news to bring that to you this morning, the 14th Amendment, and discussing the the actual wording of the amendment and pulling out some history for you. I was hesitant on doing that, but I think it's so important that we actually read the Constitution and not listen to public educators, because a lot of times they're going to lie to you, and people will continue to lie to you. And the reason why is because they might not even really know. They're just spewing out something that they heard that, they feel like they trust, right? They trust these people, and they're going to spew out the same information that they're fed. Do want to share this. Romans 12:13, 1 Peter 4-9, or 4:9, then John. I will read those for you here coming up in just a little bit. I'm going to be right back. I'm going to heat this coffee up. Hey, good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in to the live stream. We are going to get to we're going to get to Chick-fil-A going woke, which is really disappointing. Um he went as far, so Chick-fil-A's Dan Cathy, he went as far to say this. He just went full woke, and he said that every white guy, every white person should get on their knees and shine black people's shoes with a sense of shame and sense of embarrassment for racial injustice. Yes, that is what's going on. Chick-fil-A, they are no longer safe, folks. I will also be talking about these 50 teenagers who jumped these two Marines. It's a disturbing story, really, where these Marines, they just approached these teenagers and they said, "Hey, please stop shooting fireworks into people, into crowds of people. That's probably something you don't want to do." And I mean, what a way to acknowledge Memorial Day. The response of these 50 plus teenagers was to jump these Marines and beat them up. And surprise, surprise, can you guess where it happened? California. No, it didn't happen in Chicago. Although, in what is going on there? I don't know. I have some theories about it. What is going on where we have teenagers across the nation, but just starting to really, it's gang violence, I guess. It's of great concern. I don't know why we have teenagers starting to like almost coordinate. It's like domestic terrorism. I'm back. Hold on. No, not Chick-fil-A. You've got to be kidding me. Chick-fil-A goes woke. Like really woke. Like really, really woke. So I've got the clip here. I'm going to play it for you. This is Chick-fil-A's Dan Cathy, and he goes full woke, and he says that every white person should get on their knees and start shining black people's shoes with shame, with a sense of shame and embarrassment for racial injustice. Here we go. Let's take a listen.
Some of our closing moments here, but a story that was shared with me by a dear friend who shared with me about a revival that was taking place at a church in Texas. And at that revival, on the front seat was an older African American man that was sitting there. And this young man got up that was there in that service, and he'd been so gripped with conviction about the racism that was in that local community in a small town in Texas that he took a shoe brush and he walked over to this elderly gentleman and he knelt on his knees and began to shine his shoes. And tears began to flow in that service. It was an attitude of conviction. So I invite folks to put some words to action here. And if we need to find somebody that needs to have their shoe shine, we need to just go right on over and shine their shoes. And whether they got tennis shoes on or not, maybe they got sandals on, it really doesn't matter. But there's a time in which we need to have, some personal action here. Maybe we need to give them a hug too, brother.
And some stock in Chick-fil-A.
Oh boy. Folks, and I just read for you the decision in that 1857 court case. It's Dred Scott. And, it's Dred Scott versus Sanford. And the decision ultimately said, hey, no black American could ever be a citizen in the United States. And that is villain. I didn't know that. It's very humbling, and I can't believe that that's part of our American history. It doesn't mean that we ignore it. It doesn't mean that we have to be, we should be ashamed of it, but we should be looking at how far we've come. That is so far from where we're at. We had great men. A man from Illinois a senator, come out and draft up the 14th Amendment and address these southern states, these Democrat southern states at the time, right? And how they didn't want black people to have citizenship in their state. They didn't want black people to be citizens in their states. But we had great men like Lyman Trumbull of Illinois draft up the 14th Amendment. And there's been all kinds of legislation since. And instead of looking down and shining black people's shoes, the white man feeling inherently racist and feeling so much shame and guilt to where you're just constantly looking down at other people's shoes, we should be looking up and we should be looking at the future and not constantly looking back. I mean, that was in 1857. Look how far we've come. I don't know. That was my thought on it. And Chick-fil-A has gone full woke. They said that they're committed to diversity, equity, inclusion. Go woke, you go broke. Look, folks, I don't know how these people continue to do the woke thing after seeing what's going on with Bud Light and Target. All right, I have to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about the 50 teenagers in California who jumped two Marines on Memorial Day weekend. What a way to acknowledge Memorial Day. 50 teenagers jumping these two guys. Why? Over some fireworks, because these teenagers were blasting off fireworks into a crowd, and the Marines said, you guys probably don't want to do that. And what did they get? A beatdown. I'll be back here on the Morning Buzz. We've got so much to cover. So much to cover, such little time. I'll be back. Actually, I want to address this. This is so important. That is actually factually and historically wrong. Jesus, we follow, was a refugee and an immigrant after he was born, fearing that the king would murder Jesus as they returned to their homeland, Judea. Mary and Joseph fled with their child to Egypt. That's actually factually wrong. So let me dig into that, shall we? I hope you're still listening. I would like to unpack this for you. And this is a great piece from Stand to Reason. So this isn't me, but this is of a great pastor who debunks this. Admittedly, I might be walking into something here a little bit more political than I want to be involved in, but I've noticed a number of people saying recently that Mary, Joseph, and Jesus are asylum seekers or refugees. This claim is ahistorical, but it has gained new traction with the portrayal by the United Methodist Church nativity scene and placing Mary, Joseph, and Jesus in a manger in separate cages. There was, I guess, a Claremont United Methodist Church nativity scene out there. The image of this scene, which is very visceral, and does not convey a very strong emotional stance on the issue. And does convey a strong emotional stance on the issue. And it's gone viral the last few weeks, and I think it should. This is both a clever and emotional piece, which, if it were correct, would be a powerful point in and of itself. So first, I want to say that this is not a political thing, but an attempt to correct for the sake of truth and historical clarity. So I want to correct this guy. He's sitting here saying that Jesus, Mary, Joseph were refugees, asylum seekers, whatever. Not true. The issue at the American border and refugees globally is not the focus point of this post, but rather my own personal opinion on this important and polarizing issue. So second, this is this claim that Jesus and his whole family. Here, hold on, I gotta come back. Good morning, folks. This is the Morning Buzz. Oh, man, I am getting close here to the 7 o'clock hour. I'll be back in just about 5 minutes. And we're going to talk about these 50 teenagers jumping these 2 Marines. Also, AOC, she's getting herself into some trouble here because she's having a meltdown over a parody account. It's clearly marked parody, and she's losing her marbles because there's this parody account that uses her name. And she's warning all of her followers. She's like, be careful about what you see. Oh, AOC, lighten up. Okay, let me address this this text here real quick about Jesus and him being a refugee and asylum seeker. And it comes from the Gospel of Matthew. So, after they had gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. Get up and take the child and his mother and flee to Egypt and stay there until I tell you. For King Herod is going to look for the child and kill him. Then he got up, took the child and his mother during the night and went to Egypt. The United Nations, they define refugees as people who have fled war, violence, conflict, persecution, and have crossed an international border to find safety in another country. So at face value, yes, it might appear that Mary, Joseph, and Jesus fled conflict and persecution and went from Judea to Egypt, therefore crossing an international border. So why do I claim that this is incorrect and this is actually misinformation when people say that Jesus was a refugee, Mary and Joseph were refugees, were asylum seekers? Well, the main issue is that despite what modern borders look like today, Joseph, Mary, and Jesus never left the Roman Empire. Okay, this is just historical facts. I'm just laying down some historical facts for you, and I'm sorry that you believe this. They didn't escape from one country to another or cross an international border, as we understand it, because they never actually left the Roman province of Judea to seek sanctuary in the Roman province of. Instead, they left the Roman province of Judea to seek sanctuary in another Roman province of. I'm going to have a hard time. Egyptus. I'm not very good with the names. I read the Bible, I skim right over the names, and I pretend that I know the pronunciations. Egyptus, the Roman Empire at this time would have been understood similar, although the comparison is not a perfect analogy, to the current USA. In that independent, there were like different states and authorities. So it's almost like they went from Florida to Illinois. Okay, they didn't flee internationally because they went from one Roman Empire state to a different Roman Empire state. They are not refugees, as by definition, under the United Nations, because they have to cross international borders or lines. So, for the sake of analogy, I'm just going to say it's like crossing from Florida to Illinois. That's what it is. Although it's much larger than that, right? They went miles and miles. I'm not disparaging or trying to downplay their trek in fleeing the place. But historically, like I said, it's wrong. I don't fault those who have been making this claim, sharing these types of stories. But not everybody has a degree in history. I don't have a degree in history. I just know that, hey, there's people who who are wolves in sheep's clothing, and they try to use this for political reasons and political advancement. And historically, it's just not accurate to sit there and say that they were refugees, because historically at that time, they were fleeing their homeland Judea into Egypt, and they were two Roman provinces, Roman Empire provinces. So you're wrong. But thanks for listening and bringing that up, because I think that it's important. Um, yeah, yeah. So I like this one. If you are here legally and in the process of seeking citizenship, I would have no problem with the dual citizenship. I have a friend that has a daughter that was born at a public hospital in Germany when she was in the service and has dual citizenship because of that. But again, she was there legally, jumping the creek, having a kid. Not jumping the creek and having a kid. That is not the point of the 14th Amendment. Yes. Yeah, I would understand, right, if you're there legally. And that's one thing, too, I want to clarify. Under Trump's executive order, he has come out and said that if you have one parent here, and you have to think about this from a humanitarian perspective, if you have both parents who are here illegally and they have a legal child in the United States, they have to either decide, hey, am I going to keep the child here in the United States to live out his or her life as a United States citizen, or am I, if I'm deported, right? There is a humanitarian thing here. Donald Trump, under his executive order, has said that he's going to make sure that, if one parent is here legally, then that means there is an allegiance there, and that parent can make that decision for that child. A baby can't make an allegiance. The whole point of the 14th Amendment, as I defined it for us, was the, you have to owe some sort of allegiance to the United States to be a United States citizen. I mean, that's how they defined it in primary documentation. That's not me. That's the whole point of the language there. So, yeah, we're back here in just a little bit. Really enjoying your text messages this morning. 309-451-9299. Tell me where you're listening from. Colfax, Leroy, Lexington, Dwight, Pontiac. How about Peoria? Where are you listening from? I've got a text here. I didn't need another reason to vote for Trump, but that executive order gives me yet another reason to vote for Donald Trump. Yeah. So like he's been saying since 2019, he wants a policy. He wants to create policy, an executive order to prevent birthright citizenship for children of parents who are illegal immigrants. He wants to make sure there is at least one parent who is a legal citizen of the United States in order for that child to be granted some sort of citizenship. Birthright, just because you're born within the geographical limits of the United States, it doesn't mean that you get automatic citizenship. And that's according to the 14th Amendment. Donald Trump is the only person willing to say something controversial and to ruffle some feathers for the sake of being constitutionally accurate, philosophically accurate. This 14th Amendment does not say what Democrats, what Republicans say it says. The constitutional amendment, there's historical precedent there. There's a reason why the 14th Amendment exists. The 14th Amendment is pretty clear on what criteria you have to meet in order to be an American citizen. So he puts out this video, and he's the only guy fighting for people to start to interpret the Constitution correctly. I mean, I think a president who defends the clear meaning of the 14th Amendment, is a good choice. The president takes an oath to defend the Constitution. That's exactly what Donald Trump is doing with this policy. And in the 6 o'clock hour, I broke it down for us. I told you about the 14th Amendment. I told you about the primary documents from one of our very own Illinois senators back in the 1800s, Lyman Trumbull, how he said, look, this whole part within the 14th Amendment that says subject to the jurisdiction means not owing allegiance to anybody else. And then even a different senator from Michigan, a sponsor of the clause of the 14th Amendment, further clarified that amendment and explicitly said, look, people born in the United States who are foreigners, aliens, who belong to families of ambassadors and foreign ministers do not get citizenship. So the amendment is clarified by senators in documents, and there is a historical precedent here from this Dred Scott versus Sanford case where this was an amendment drafted for the Black American. There was a case that said that, hey, Black Americans can never be granted citizenship in the United States, and the amendment was to overturn Dred Scott in that case and define the precise meaning of American citizenship. And when you read the amendment's very first sentence, it's pretty dang clear. I'm just going to read it, then I got to move on. Quote, this is the 14th Amendment. All persons born, or naturalized, legal immigration, lawful immigration, in the United States, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. So, it's pretty clear to me. Do want to shift gears, want to talk about this. A group of 50 teenagers jumping two Marines. This happened over the weekend. The numbers are climbing. I'm starting to see videos of 50. People originally said 30. Some were saying 10. I think it's closer to 50. This is not a way to acknowledge Memorial Day, at least not for you or me or anyone else who isn't a sucker-punching little rat. These kids in this video, these teenagers are sick. And if they were my kid, but what happened, surprise, surprise, in California over this past weekend, it was all over fireworks, I guess, because these teenagers, they were lighting fireworks off into crowds of people. You can't do that. And being a good citizen that he is, Hunter Antonio, he is one of the first Marines attacked. There were two Marines attacked. He was one of the Marines attacked there. He was telling local news that a horde of teens, they were shooting fireworks on the beach and harassing people. So these two guys went up and asked them to stop, and one of the Marines got hit in the head with some debris. And then the other one was hit from behind with another weapon from one of these thugs. And then all of a sudden, a beatdown started happening. If you want to watch the article, or if you want to watch the video here, I've got it up on Facebook Live and on YouTube Live. You can see the Marine who got beat up. You can actually see the injuries that he sustained on Facebook and on YouTube Live, but you can also hear what he has to say. It's important. Here we go.
My face still had blood all over it. It wasn't cool at all.
3 local Marines are recovering from an attack by a large group of teens in San Clemente. It happened Friday night near the pier. Disturbing video shows 2 of the Marines taking cover on the ground as they're being repeatedly kicked in the head and upper body. The Orange County Sheriff's Department is working to track down the culprits.
This is considered an assault with a deadly weapon because of the amount of suspects that we are investigating. The weapons that were used were their feet while these victims were on the ground. So regardless if the victims choose prosecution or choose medical attention, the Sheriff's Department is going to investigate this to the fullest and try to determine who the suspects are.
One of the Marines says he and two buddies were enjoying time off from Camp Pendleton at one of their favorite spots near the San Clemente Pier when 30 to 40 kids showed up on the beach. This is video from a resident who says he called deputies multiple times about the unruly crowd. According to the injured Marine, the teenagers lit off fireworks, and when debris hit him in the face, he politely asked them to leave.
And they were lighting off fireworks. They were being belligerent. They were being obnoxious and annoying other people. So we went up to them, told them to stop.
And that's when he says the crowd followed them over to the pier and things turned violent. The Lance Corporal thinks he may have a concussion from being beat up and stomped on. There are two city cameras here on the side of Fisherman's Restaurant that may have captured what went on here Friday night. The mayor tells me that the city's IT staff is working right now to get those images to Sheriff's Department investigators.
So there you have it, folks. I played for you that clip from the local news where they talked about the Marines being beaten up by a large group of teenagers. Now, the Marines were overwhelmed and they just kind of turtled up. They covered their heads and protected their heads until two other bystanders ran over, broke up the fight from these 50 teenagers ganging up on these two Marines. And the local news there reports, they say two Marines only suffered minor injuries and estimates of between 10 to 30 teens were involved in the beatdown. Now, others are saying it was about 50 teens. And I'm watching video right now that looks like it's about 50 people. 50 teenagers. Now, no arrests have been made. This is the Orange County Sheriff's Department. This is what they say in a statement. They say, "We will continue to investigate this matter until all individuals responsible are identified and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law." Good. This is no way to treat Marines on Memorial Day weekend. I mean, what a way to acknowledge Memorial Day. This is terrible. Now, upon the capture of any assailants, this is what I say, I wouldn't press charges. I would, however, force them to face off with one of these Marines that they beat up and see how they would do in a one-on-one situation without the 49 other friends of theirs jumping in. I think that's a proportional response. What do you think? 309-451-9299. Do want to shift gears, want to talk about AOC. I'm sorry. I guess I've got to talk about AOC. AOC tweeted this out yesterday. FYI, there's a fake account out there impersonating me and it's going viral. The Twitter CEO has engaged it, boosting visibility. It's releasing false policy statements and gaining spread. I'm assessing with my team how to move forward. In the meantime, be careful about what you see. My gosh, this woman's nuts. She's absolutely insane. AOC, she's losing her marbles here. There's the tweet if you're watching on Facebook Live. So I mean, that's pretty hilarious. She's all upset about this marked parody account. It's marked. It says that it's a parody account because she thinks that people are listening to it rather than her. That's what this is really about. The attention's on the fake parody account. AOC's real account, and if you don't know about this about Twitter, you have to have a gray check mark, which I think is pretty funny if you're a government official. So that way people know you're government. Of course, the reason that people might believe the parody account is that AOC's real account actually says things that are so wild and so close to parody, it's sometimes really hard to tell the difference. It's almost like libs of TikTok, right? These people just say it themselves a lot of the time. So an example for you, the parody account, they tweeted this out. They said, quote, "Printing money is the only way out of inflation." And you would think that, I mean, it's completely believable, folks, that AOC might say something like that because she's a socialist and she wants to spend us into oblivion. And she has no real understanding of what inflation is really all about. Printing money is the reason why we have inflation. You're inflating the economy. She's worried that people might mistake her this parody account for her actual account. If she's worried that people will mistake a parody account for her, doesn't that say a whole lot about her ideas? And what does that say about her followers if they fall for it? Maybe she should think about this a little bit, right? I mean, if your tweets closely resemble a parody account, maybe you should be, I don't know, assessing that. But instead, she's assessing with her team how to move forward. Seriously, you think you're going to be able to stop a parody account? It's clearly marked parody account, and it's completely within the terms and services of Twitter. You can have parody accounts of people if it's marked parody, right? Now, does she think that she's going to scare the account with that remark that she made here about how I'm assessing with my team how to move forward? She's probably trying to scare the person who created the parody account of her. That comment just honestly makes her look silly because there's nothing she can do. Literally nothing. It's a parody account and it's marked parody. It's not like they're impersonating her or anything like that or doxing her. She just can't take a joke. And she got really upset too because Elon Musk, he responded to the account and he said, he sent like a little fire emoji to the parody account. And she's claiming, AOC, of course, is claiming that boosted the visibility of the account. The Twitter CEO boosted the visibility of the account. She's throwing a hissy fit. What AOC doesn't understand is that by throwing this hissy fit over the account, she's actually raised its visibility up. I actually followed the account this morning because I was like, oh, that's pretty funny. The tweet has almost 8 million views now. So her tweet talking about the parody account has 8 million views now, and most of the people on her Twitter account are mocking her for not being able to take a joke. Now, even more people on the right, me, you, who hadn't seen the parody account, did because she complained about it. I probably wouldn't have even seen the account had she not complained about it, but she just made things worse for herself because she's not very sharp. She's not the sharpest tool in the tool shed, you know what I mean? AOC is instead concerned about this, and she's not concerned about doing her job. At the end of the day, I pull stupid stuff like this because she's more concerned about the people that dare mock her. That's so Democrat of her. It's boring, okay? That's boring. Democrats are always they can't take a joke, man. She's a member of Congress trying to shut down free speech because it criticizes her. That's a problem. But yet again, like I said, she's not bright. This might possibly be one of the most ridiculous things that AOC has ever said. And that's saying something. On the other side, this is the Morning Buzz. Got to take a break. Do want to talk about this Christian MLB player. He released like this hostage style video. So originally he spoke out against Bud Light, Target, and he said, look, there is a biblical there is a way to fight against this biblically, and there is a biblical reason why we should be boycotting this. And he shared this video to Instagram, and I assume that the LGBTQ freakazoids ganged up on him, and now he's forced to apologize in this hostage-style looking video. And man, he's just weak. He should have just stood his ground, this player. I'll be back on the other side. This is the Morning Buzz. Hey, good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in to the live stream. Like I said, I did want to address this comment because I've seen a lot of people even wearing t-shirts that suggest that Jesus and Mary and Joseph, they were actually refugees. That's not true historically. And I want to debunk that for us so that way you don't fall victim to a lot of this stuff. Like I said, they're at that time, they weren't like modern borders like we have today. Mary, Joseph, Jesus, they never left the Roman Empire. They didn't escape from one country to another or cross an international border. And here's what the United Nations defines as refugees. quote, as people who have fled war, violence, conflict, persecution, and have crossed an international border to find safety in another country. So at face value, it might seem like Mary, Joseph, and Jesus fled conflict and persecution, that they did, and went from Judea to Egypt, therefore crossing this international border. But it's not like the modern borders we have today. Like I said, they didn't escape from one country to another. Rather, they went from one Roman province of Judea to seek sanctuary in a different Roman province in Egypt there. So that was essentially like crossing state lines. And I think that that's really important to point out. You're historically wrong. And now I don't blame you, right? You're just going off of some Bible verses and, cherry picking some of them. But if you were to understand the historical context and the biblical context, then you would understand that, hey, that actually isn't accurate. And I probably shouldn't be telling people that because it just fuels political division. And it really doesn't do it necessarily. You shouldn't be fueling political division if you don't have all of the facts there. Same thing with the 14th Amendment. People don't understand that there's a different caveat to that. There's two different things within the 14th Amendment. One, you can be here birth. You could have a birthright of citizenship, or be a naturalized citizen, i.e., come in here legally. That's one criteria. But then you have to meet the second criteria, and the second criteria is all that more important because it's almost like you're entering in a contract with the United States and saying that, yes, I agreed to be a United States citizen. I'm swearing my allegiance to the United States. And this is a mutually agreed upon contract between the United States and myself being a citizen. As a baby with no right, or like no ability to really advocate for yourself or swear allegiance of any kind, that falls on your parents. And if they have some sort of foreign allegiance, then they cannot be, you cannot be a United States citizen if you are born here in the country. So like I said, the 14th Amendment's pretty clear in the Constitution, and Donald Trump coming out and saying, hey, I'm going to sign an executive order saying that at least one parent has to have some sort of allegiance to the United States, or it has to be legal. I'm going to make that a policy moving forward. Just shows that Donald Trump is and should be the only the only president moving forward in 2024, because he right now is the only person advocating for the Constitution, the way it's written, and he's defending the Constitution, and that's very presidential, because as a president, you are to swear an oath to the Constitution. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'm sure she knows all of this, and this is probably why she's drafted up impeachment papers against President Joe Biden, because currently he is not acting as in compliance with his oath. He took an oath to defend the United States Constitution, and he is not defending the United States Constitution by allowing natural-born citizens or born citizens birthright citizenship. Because that is not how you obtain citizenship here in the United States. Just because you're born here does not mean that you get citizenship, because that's not what the 14th Amendment says. There's two different, separate, I'm going to read it for you here. All persons born or naturalized, that's i.e. legal immigration, lawful immigration if you go through the process, if you're born or you are naturalized in the United States, and subject to jurisdiction thereof. It needs to be clarified, I think, legislatively what that means. But we do know what it means because we have this little guy from Illinois. He's a principal figure in drafting up that amendment, and he defined it as not owing allegiance to anybody else. And they went on further to clarify that, hey, this means no foreigners, aliens, or people who belong to foreign ambassadors or families. So, yeah, it's pretty dang clear, the 14th Amendment. Hey, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. I so do appreciate you tuning in here. We've got some comments here, and I wanted to address this on the air. I've been addressing it on the Facebook Live. I wanted to bring it to air because it's something that I've noticed a lot. People will say that Jesus, Mary, Joseph, they were refugees. They were seeking asylum. Now we know the story, right? The Gospel of Matthew tells us that Joseph was approached in a dream and they said, "Get up, take the child and his mother and flee to Egypt and stay there until I tell you. For the king is going to come looking for the child and kill him." Then they got up, they took the child and his mother, and during the night they went to Egypt. So people say that that's Jesus, Mary, Joseph fleeing their homeland, and they are seeking asylum in Egypt. Now, that's not historical. It's not historically accurate to say that Jesus was a refugee. This is political. This is clearly somebody taking the Bible out of context and the historical context surrounding these places. The United Nations, they define it as this: refugees, quote, are people who have fled war, violence, conflict, or persecution and have crossed an international border to find safety in another country. So, okay, at face value, yes, it appears that Mary, Joseph, Jesus, they fled conflict and persecution. They were going to kill Jesus, and therefore they crossed an international border. So why am I saying that that's not historically accurate? Well, the borders back then did not look like what we've got now. Okay, so there were no borders. What they did was they fled a Roman province, and they fled to a different Roman province. So they didn't escape from one country to another and cross an international border, as we would understand it today. Rather, this, in historical context, it's similar, and for an analogy's sake, it's like crossing state to state within the United States, from Illinois to Florida, right? Now, it was a much longer, I'm not trying to disparage or downplay that trek. Obviously, that was a long trip, and for Christians, it was amazing, and it's really hard to wrap our brains around what happened supernaturally, right? God was on their side, and he got them there to Egypt when they were fleeing. But historically, they didn't flee, and they didn't cross international borders. And as it is defined by the United Nations, that is the definition of a refugee, is somebody who crosses an international border, and they never did that. So just wanted to be honest and point that out. On the other side, we have Scott Robbins a little bit later. I do want to talk about this Christian MLB player. His name is Anthony Bass. I guess he plays for the Toronto Blue Jays, and he's a relief pitcher. And he shared this video on his Instagram page, and he explained the biblical perspective of why Christians should be boycotting Target and Bud Light. I told you that you should boycott Target and Bud Light. The reason why is because Target literally has infant-sized little onesies that say, "Satan respects your pronouns." Okay, so it doesn't get more blasphemy. They're blaspheming your religion. As a Christian, so you probably should boycott Target and Bud Light. But Anthony Bass, he comes out after explaining the biblical perspective of why Christians should be boycotting. Then he comes out with this hostage video, a hostage-style video. It's apology for really just speaking up and fighting back against the wokeness of corporate America. And he bent the knee, which I was very disappointed about. So I will be talking about that a little bit later. Scott Robbins will join me next here on the Morning Buzz. You can text in at 309-451-9299. And as always, you can tune into the live stream. on Facebook and on YouTube. I'll be back. What's going on with Dylan there, Scott Robbins? He's going through a crisis, I think.
I'm going through stuff this morning, and that one just sort of popped right out at me, right?
Scott Robbins right over there, folks.
Yeah.
This is the Morning Buzz.
Well, here's what I don't understand. I don't understand. I mean, I guess if you're out of the limelight for a while, or your disastrous campaign for a major, beer manufacturer in America just completely tanks, and you're desperate for any attention, although you're very toxic because really they shouldn't be dealing with you anymore if they want to sell product, I guess depending on the product. But at any rate, Dylan Mulvaney now has come out, and this is the game that we play all the time, right? Dylan Mulvaney, the 365 Days of Girlhood, that was celebrated by Bud Light, has now come out saying, hey, I like girls. So I'll let him explain that. And he had a conversation with his dad about it, I guess, but here we go.
So I recently told my parents that I may be a little bit romantically interested in women. And that was a big shock for them, considering the past 10 years of coming out as gay, then queer, then non-binary, then trans. And I think it was just a bit of a shock. So I tell my dad, and he goes, well, I would love to see you get a woman pregnant. And I said, oh, no. She would be getting me
pregnant. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Man. Well,
yeah,
here's my first reaction, real quick, Scott.
Yeah. After all, yes.
He goes, that came as a bit of a shock to them, especially considering I came out as gay, non-binary, then trans. And I'm like, does anything not, like, at this point, if I was his parents, I'd be like, okay, nothing shocks me anymore at this point.
No,
you want to be a dragon? Okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
Your parents are shocked by this, really? Okay.
Yeah. When your whole existence, this is the Kardashian phenomenon too, right? When your whole existence, like Greta Thunberg, if these people were just walking around and you ran in, you saw them at the mall or whatever, I don't think you'd think twice about it. But because of what they did and people pushing them out, or they did it themselves to gain some sort of fame and notoriety, this is the result. You've done nothing. You've created nothing. I mean, you just are. I mean, it's a funny thing to me, because generally speaking, you have to actually physically do something or create something, whether that's music, whether that's a movie, whether it's a work of art, whether it's a building you put up, whether it's a business you build. You have to do something. Now all you have to do is show up. Just be a freak show and show up, and they'll chase you around. So that to me is fundamentally what is under all of this stuff. I mean, what have the Kardashians ever even mowed a yard? Have they ever? I mean, seriously, it's just this whole thing. What have they done to attain the fame they have? Well, they put on a reality show and everybody watched it. Why? I guess because there's 3 attractive women on there. I don't know. I can't figure it out either. And it's not for me, so I don't really care. But all I'm saying is you don't have to really accomplish anything now. Mm-hmm. What has Dylan Mulvaney accomplished? I mean, what has he done? Heighten the awareness of transgenderism? He got invited to the White House. I mean, this is where everything is. I want to play this for you real quick today. There, you know what's going on with Target, right, Kat? You've been to Target, you understand, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Everybody knows what's going on at Target, right? And it's the transgender onesies, and it's the tuck for the penis in the boys that want to be girls category, even though they're children, right?
I can't see your face, but I can see you literally scrunching up
Say
your
the
face.
word, yes. But it's true. We're adults here. We're all adults here.
Adults, and it's if you're comfortable sharing it with my child, I guess I got to talk about it. So.
Right, and so there it is. And again, Target decided this was a good idea. This was going to broaden their appeal. This was going to get them good marks, good scores. Everybody's in search of that. So they decided to go all in on it, much like Bud Light did. Bud Light probably will never recover. And if they do, it's going to be a long time, because that thing's in the tank right now. And it's been, a couple of months now, and it continues to be a precipitous fall off the mountain. Mm-hmm. And again, no fault of the local guys who do this stuff. I mean, they certainly didn't green light this project. But at any rate, now we move on to Target, and Target's been known to have these clothes displayed prominently in their store for children, for children. That's the rub. That's where the difference is. It's not, anti-alphabet, whatever. It isn't. It has nothing to do with that. It's leave the damn kids alone. That's all anybody's asking. Just leave the kids alone. And, of course, they can't do that, and they're not going to do that. They did move, I guess, some of the clothing like somewhere else in the store, so it's not hitting you in the face the minute you walk in. All right? But a guy is out there, and he put this rap song together, okay? And, again, I don't know who this guy is. His name, is it Forgiato Blow, I believe is how you pronounce his name. That's his rap name, anyway. But he set this thing to a rap, this anti-Target thing, and it's like gone whipped up the charts. It's like number one, right? So people are listening to this. Anyway, I thought I'd give you a little idea of what that sounds like today. Hang on, it's a rap song, but bear with us. Here we go.
I keep a strap, and I'm always by my bands. This agenda gotta stop. Yeah, you know we gonna win when they target, yeah, they target and target, yeah, they target kids, target, yeah, they target kids, target, yeah, they target kids. Targets that wrong, trying to play with the kids. It's the mayor of Megaville, I'm preaching again. You know the LGBTQ done went too far. You know they cutting these kids, they leaving trannies with scars. Why they pushing the agenda, promoting sexual genders? I'm only rocking with Bruce, don't rock with no Caitlyn Jenner. You think that gay shit gon' get you paid? Yeah, we gon' see. It's Mar-a-Lago 2024, we trumping, baby. They put a target on my back, but they targeting your kids. They don't even need to ask, cause you all know what it is.
Okay, I think we got the idea here, right? That's so this is this
such
new
a great song.
pop culture phenomenon thing right now. Now, people have asked me, gee, do you think the Target boycott will last, much like the Bud Light, or you think it'll have quite the social impact? On that, I don't know. I'm really unclear on that one because I don't know.
I think it should have a longer because at the end of the day, let's just point this out. Bud Light is marketing towards adults. You have to be 21 to drink beer, right? You're not watching Bud Light commercials if you're a kid. Now, however, parents bring their children into the Target store and they've got books, children's toys, targeting children. So at the end of the day, I hope that Target has a more lasting impact.
Let me peel this back a little bit from where I sit because I'm not going to push back definitely on you, but I will say this. Target is a unique store unto itself. There's things, for instance, you can get at Target you may have to really struggle to find elsewhere. Can we agree on that one? I mean, Target was that kind of store. You could get a can of soup and you could get the latest, fashion or whatever. I mean, you could, in the same one-stop shopping, very convenient, right? You could do all this in one location. It was more of kind of an upscale Walmart-y sort of feel. Is that accurate? Am I describing it accurately in your mind?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
When I talk about Target, I mean, I've been to Target. I get it. And I'm not big into boycotts. I've never been one to, announce that you should boycott this. I give you the information. You decide on your own what it is you want to do, whether you want to continue to participate or not. Bud Light. The problem with Bud Light is there are 67,000 options. I don't have to drink that. It's not. It doesn't corner the market on. There's a million beers that are very similar. Correct. I don't have to do this. And what Bud Light is, they became a meme. The whole thing became a meme, and not a good one. So if you order one now, your buddy might give you a side eye. But as much as you want to push back on something like that, you can't because that's the reality of the world. That's the reality of guys getting together, their target audience, and drinking their product. And again, they've got 73 different choices. They don't have to do this. A lot of them did it out of brand loyalty because they felt good about the imaging that was taking place with Bud Light, and to them it was the choice. I mean, when I was drinking, that's all I drank. And it wasn't because it had this exquisite, one-of-a-kind taste. It was because I felt comfortable with the product. It was consistent for me. It was something I liked. And, people say, well, maybe you like your beer watered down. Well, maybe I did. I don't know.
Well, I don't know.
But all I'm saying is, that I did. And and again, if you drink it now, you're in a position where you almost have to defend what it is you're doing.
Yeah, I know.
So, like it or not, that's just the reality of the world.
It's true.
And we'll see what happens with Target and some of these other. You said Kohl's was going in that direction too?
Yeah, that was really sad. The onesies were a big deal at Kohl's.
Is this part of this ESG score? Is that what it's called?
Oh, yeah.
Where-
yeah. Well,
and
who was it? NBC was sitting there yesterday, Scott, trying to say that it was because the LGBTQ people, they're the ones who have all of the purchasing power. And
Well,
I'm
that's
like,
not true.
give me the numbers again on that one.
Well,
NBC they cited some sort of like LGBT financial services or whatever, and I'm just like, you gotta be kidding me on this one.
Well, talk to InBev about that, right?
Yeah.
And again, I'm not. It's one of those things where you can stand up and say, "Well, listen, I have gay friends, I have gay relatives in my family. This isn't an anti-gay thing. It's got nothing to do with that. This is leave the kids alone. That's all anybody's asking. Just leave the children alone."
I've talked to my gay friends, and the people I talk to, he says, "Look, you're reducing my sexuality down to a handbag." Right?
Yeah,
He goes,
well,
this is a struggle for me every single day, being that,
Right.
I'm a Christian. I try to be a Christian, and,
Right,
he struggles with it every day. And he goes, this is a big deal to me.
Right.
And you're reducing it down to a handbag is sold to kids. And he goes, it's not a characteristic. It's something I go through every day.
What's going to happen? What's going to happen? And listen, it hasn't happened yet, but it will. I don't understand female athletes not pushing back on the agenda too. By saying men can't play in our sport. This is not fair. This is not right. And have an argument. Why there aren't more Riley Gaines in the world, I don't know. Because there should be. Now, I'm waiting for the guy who is not good enough to play in the NBA, doesn't want to get a real job, to declare himself a woman and go to the WNBA and dominate and make a pile of money. If you don't think that's going to happen, it will at some point. They'll say, that idiot on the radio said that was going to happen. So anyway, there you go. Hey, Kat, have a fantabulous. It's hot out there, isn't it?
It's hot. It's not going to rain for a while there, Scott.
I know. My farmer friends are not happy right now, and they shouldn't be. All right. Talk to you later.
All right. I'll see you later, Scott Robbins. Scott Robbins is on later tonight, folks, for Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins. I'll be back. This Christian MLB player, speaking about Target and Bud Light, he was saying, hey, you need to boycott these. And then he comes out with an apology video. I've got it here next. Good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in to the live stream. Be sure to comment and to like the video, share it out with your friends. I like this. Jacqueline, thanks so much for contributing. I recently had the pleasure of a conversation with a local business owner from Vietnam. He experienced communism and had warnings for what he sees the left accomplishing currently in our great country. His youngest son has just graduated from high school with honors, going on to study to be a linguist. So he's fluent in 7 languages. Wow, really cool. With that tidbit, only to point out the vast differences. Anyway, he explained that his sister petitioned the United States for a visa in 2009 and is still waiting. So this is an interesting story. When you hear about people who go through the immigration process, they'll tell you all the time that, hey, this was really hard for me to go through this immigration process, but it's very rewarding. And they have a special allegiance to the United States after going through that naturalization. And I've been talking a lot about the 14th Amendment this show, being that Donald Trump has announced that he's going to, if president again in 2024, he's going to sign a policy, an executive order that says, hey, at least one parent has to be legal here in the United States, has to have legal citizenship, has to be naturalized as a citizen in order for you to have some sort of birthright citizenship. You can't just have the birthright citizenship. You have to have some sort of jurisdiction of the United States thereof. So there is a clause here in the 14th Amendment that a lot of people probably don't know about. And me, I feel like I've been lied to the whole time. My public education was crap, I guess, or they just lied to me. The 14th Amendment, there's a clause, and I'm going to read the 14th Amendment for us. Here's just the first sentence. It says, all persons born or naturalized, so naturalized is going through the legal way of obtaining citizenship in the United States. So born or naturalized, and this is so important, subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. So that's really important. And there's a lot of debate surrounding that clause, the subject to the jurisdiction thereof the United States. So subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. And people don't know what that means. Well, good thing that we don't really have to know what that means exactly, because it's already laid out for us by a senator from Illinois, actually. His name is Lyman Trumbull, and he's a principal figure in drafting up this 14th Amendment. And as it's defined, subject to the jurisdiction, it means not owing an allegiance to anybody else or a different country, another country, tribe, or anything like that. So it means that you have an allegiance to the United States, not of a different country. And it goes on further to explain, specifically Senator Jacob Howard of Michigan, one of the sponsors of the clause here in the 14th Amendment, further clarified that the amendment explicitly excludes from citizenship people born in the United States who are foreigners, aliens, or who belong to families of ambassadors or foreign ministers. So, there you have it. U.S. officials, led by immigration enthusiasts in and out of government, have acted as though the subject to the jurisdiction simply meant subject to American law. And that's not true of any tourist who comes here. Or that is true of any tourist who comes here. But that's not true if you are just born here in the United States. You don't automatically get citizenship. You have to have some sort of subject to the jurisdiction. Whoa, you gotta be kidding me. This Christian MLB player, his name's Anthony Bass. Anthony Bass, I guess, is his name. He is now coming out with this apology video. And this is really interesting because he had come out pretty hard. He'd come out hard against Bud Light and Target. Now, there's been this very excessive, very massive conservative pushback against Bud Light, Target on the issue of these so-called transgender rights. And this has proven, if anything, how the average consumer, you and I, can have an effect and can fight back against the wokeness in corporate America. But we've still got a long way to go, and that's really clear. Case in point here, Toronto Blue Jays relief pitcher, his name is Anthony Bass. And he recently shared this video out on his Instagram page. And it's of a person who explains the biblical perspective, why Christians should be boycotting Target and Bud Light. Now, before we get to Anthony Bass's hostage-style apology statement, I do want to play what clip he shared onto his Instagram in which he is apologizing for. So let's take a listen here to the Instagram video. Here we go.
That's pushing the things they're pushing. I think a lot of people make this into a political issue, or they say, oh, what's the big deal? If, is it really going to make that big of a difference if I'm shopping there or not shopping there? Here's what the Bible says. It tells us what to do as Christians in Ephesians chapter 5. It says this: take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them, for it is shameful to even talk of the things that they do in secret. So what does that mean to take no part? Well, what's Target do? It's a business. They make money. They sell things. And to take part in that is to take part in that God of mammon that they're serving, and to take part in the darkness that they're purveying and getting out to the world and shoving into children's faces. And to take part in that is to give them your money. And I believe the Bible gives us radical precedent to say no. We are running from that, and to instead expose those things, to shout it to all the people that have ears to hear that this is evil, this is demonic. We won't stand for it. We're not going to go to the stores anymore, and we're not going to give them our money. We're going to let our voice be heard so that people can see the light, and so that people can be pulled out of the darkness. Here's the reason.
So there you go. He gives a biblical reason why we as Christians should why, if you're a Christian, why you should boycott Target and Bud Light. So he gave a biblical reasoning there. Now, of course, Toronto Blue Jays player Anthony Bass, he shared this video out, and then he had to come back and do some sort of forced apology as it appears in this video. I'm going to be back. I'm going to explain this Christian MLB player's hostage-style video here next on the Morning Buzz. Okay, we'll be back here, and I will explain the Toronto Blue Jays player. Going to read a few of these. Okay. So, we are going to read visas are hard. Besides the disease junk, there is a limit. It's like a checkout line. So we're talking about immigration here, and I'm digging through the 14th Amendment all throughout the show today. It's important to talk about the 14th Amendment because not a whole lot of people know what the 14th Amendment really says, and I think it's important to unpack it in the history of the 14th Amendment because the framers had a very clear idea in mind. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is, of course, Trump, he had announced plans here to mitigate the border crisis by ending birthright citizenship to the children of illegal immigrants. So if you're born here geographically, if it's within the limits of the United States, then you are a citizen. But that is actually not constitutionally correct. So, the United States is among one of the only countries in the world currently that says that even if neither parent is a citizen, nor even lawfully in the country, their future children are automatic citizens. We're the only country that does that, and no modern country should be doing that because it's inhumane, really. Because what happens to those future children if the illegal parents are deported? So it puts those children in a very sticky situation. And those parents in a sticky situation. Like, do they leave their kid? Do they try to find somebody to take care of their kid? What happens if they get deported? So, President Donald Trump announces this yesterday on a video, and I got some text messages late last night, and they said, Kat, he's not going to win. This is like a very controversial issue. Even Republicans say that that's something, and I thought that this was a good thing that here in America, we recognized, hey, if you're born here, you are a citizen. And I always thought that was something that and my feelings have changed on it. I stayed up last night researching this, and I'm so glad that I did, because the constitutional amendment here, the 14th Amendment, does not say that you are granted automatic citizenship just because you're born here. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say that. So, citing the illegal foreign invasion of our country under Joe Biden, Trump said that under current citizenship rules, all children of those illegal immigrants will be granted birthright citizenship. Trump wants to do away with that, so on the first day of his presidency, he's promising to sign an executive order to present birthright citizenship for children of parents who are legal immigrants. Just one parent. That's what he said. Just one parent has to be a legal immigrant. Or you have to have legally obtained legal citizenship. Sip of coffee. So he had a similar policy in 2019. So this isn't anything new. The media, the talking heads, are going to sit here and try to say that Donald Trump is a bigot, he's racist, he hates the children, he hates America, he hates the Constitution. Look, he had a very similar policy idea in 2019, saying at that time that the United States should get rid of the automatic citizenship that comes with the virtue of being born here on American land in the event that the parents of those children are not legally here themselves. So he said that he wants to do away with that back in 2019. Now, here's what's interesting. Michael Anton, he's the guy behind this, understanding of the 14th Amendment, and he really helped me understand how illegal immigrant enthusiasts have been wrong and how they have interpreted the 14th Amendment incorrectly. I'm going to bring this to you here. I got to come back on air. We're going to talk about the Christian MLB player who was forced to apologize to the woke LGBTQ mob. And then we'll talk about the 14th Amendment because it's important. Donald Trump is by far the leading contender in the GOP primary race, and there's a reason for that, folks, because he is the only one acting presidential in that he is he is holding himself to his promises here, folks, and he is acting as if he is still president and defending our Constitution. Just recently, he announced his plans to mitigate the border crisis by ending birthright citizenship for children of illegal immigrants. So he wants to do away with that because the United States is actually one of the only countries in the world to do this, first of all. Second of all, it's not as bad as what the mainstream is going to say today. I mean, I'm sure he's going to be on the talking head shows. They're going to say that he's racist, for doing this, and that he hates the children, and that he's against the Constitution. No. Quite the opposite, actually. So he says that you need to have at least one lawful parent, one legal parent of this child to be considered a U.S. citizen. And there's a reason for that, because in the 14th Amendment, it lays it out very clearly for us what criteria you have to meet to be a United States citizen. And just being born here is not the only criteria to become a United States citizen as laid out in the 14th Amendment. So I want to dig through the precedent. I want to dig through the history. I looked up all of the primary documentation last night, couldn't sleep, decided to look up all of the primary documentation, become not an expert on this, but I definitely did my homework, and I have the receipts, and I'm going to provide them here for you on the Morning Buzz. Then let's talk about it. 50 teens caught on video assaulting 2 Marines. What a way to recognize and acknowledge Memorial Day. So sad. We have 50 teenagers caught on video beating, pulverizing, really, 2 Marines over these Marines going up to these teenagers and saying, hey, you might not want to shoot fireworks at people and harass people. Yeah. Then a little bit later, AOC having a meltdown over a parody account that's using her name. So she tweeted out, "A warning, oh no, you have to be careful about what you see out there, because I'm telling you right now, this account is it's so sad. I'm so scared that this is misinformation." Shut up. Your real account, I'm telling you, AOC, is far more damaging to somebody's mental stability if they were to follow you actually and read your tweets. The parody account's just funny. So I'm going to bring that to you here on the Morning Buzz. Let's start out with this, though. The Christian MLB player, his name is Anthony Bass, and he plays for the Toronto Blue Jays, and he's a relief pitcher, and he recently shared a video on his Instagram page of a person who explained the biblical perspective of why Christians should boycott Target and Bud Light. And shortly after posting that biblical perspective about why we should be boycotting Target and Bud Light as Christians, right, he went out and he had to issue some sort of apology. As it appears, this is a very hostage style video. I'm sure critics got to him and they accused him of taking the scripture out of context, this guy that he shared onto his Instagram. And Anthony Bass is the one who took all of the heat here for this video. And basically he had to apologize for being a man of faith prior to this Blue Jays scheduled home game against the Milwaukee Brewers. I think that happened like last night. So he had to come out and apologize. Here's what the apology video sounded like. And like I said, if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube Live, you can see the video and you can see how uncomfortable he is and how forced this apology appears. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
Yesterday, I made a post that was hurtful to the Pride community, which includes friends of mine and close family members of mine, and I am truly sorry for that. I just spoke with my teammates and shared with them my actions yesterday. I apologized with them, and as of right now, I'm using the Blue Jays resources to better educate myself, to make better decisions moving forward. The ballpark is for everybody. We include all fans at the ballpark, and we want to welcome everybody. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Yeah, so there we go. He bent the knee to the mob. Not surprised, really. The Blue Jays have had a lot of events planned around June in celebration of Pride Month. So Anthony Bass sharing this video about the biblical perspective on how why really we should be boycotting Bud Light and Target could not have come at a worse time for the struggling baseball team who ranked last in the American League East, and they've lost 7 of their last 10 games, so they're not like a great team. And they definitely don't want any kind of waves or feathers ruffled because they've got all kinds of June Pride Month stuff scheduled. So the Major League Baseball, what they're doing here is they're demanding apologies from Christians who did nothing wrong, and they're supporting demons who target children for genital mutilation. That's what's going on here. They chose the side of demons who target children and chop their genitals off. That's what's going on. Target has legit infant-sized t-shirts that say, "Satan respects your pronouns." They're targeting children. They're trying to convert children into Satan-worshiping, genital mutilating themselves. I mean, that's what's going on here, folks. And the Major League Baseball, they're demanding apologies from Christians who said, I don't like that. I don't think you should be targeting my kids. Don't think you should be pushing this stuff on me. Now, he's had Anthony Bass. I've talked about him before. I knew that name sounded very familiar. I've talked about him before. He's actually the guy that I talked about a while ago. He had an incident on a United Airlines flight where his pregnant wife, her name's Sydney Ray, she was told by the airline staff to get on the floor and pick up their young child's popcorn mess for herself. So he was sitting actually next to her, and I don't know why in the world he would take issue with the flight attendant saying, "Hey, your other kid, or the one you're not pregnant with, right? She had another child with her." that was spilling popcorn all over the floor on the flight, and the flight attendant said, "You have to pick this up." And they were both, Anthony and the wife, they were big mad because they had to, actually parent. So I've talked about Anthony Bass before. He's a weak-kneed guy, and clearly, given this apology video. Also, given the fact that he refused or complained about having to pick up his own kids' mess on the airlines. Like, we live in the real world, and you have to parent and you have to clean up your kids' messes. That's the way it goes. But either way, I mean, no matter how you feel about that interaction, that United Airlines flight interaction, that incident that happened, it's hard to view this one here where he has to apologize here anything other than grossly unfair, because you know that he wasn't the one to come to this decision of apologizing. He was obviously being accused of being a bigot for expressing agreement with a Christian viewpoint, while the LGBTQ outrage machine, which is notorious, by the way, for displaying bigotry themselves, are demanding he pay the high price for his Christian beliefs by getting out there and filming himself hostage-style video of him apologizing. I've said it before, we're living in a world gone mad, where the truly intolerant people are the ones demanding total agreement with their cause, or you face cancellation. If you don't agree with me, you are going to face cancellation. That's what's happening here. All right, do want to shift gears, want to talk about the 14th Amendment. I did a lot of homework on this last night, folks, and I'm glad that we get to talk about it here on the Morning Buzz. If you want to see me live in the studio, I am on Facebook Live and on YouTube. You can interact with me, and I can interact with you. Now, Trump announced his plans here to mitigate the border crisis by ending birthright citizenship of children of illegal immigrants. And I got some texts last night from Republicans, and they were like, "Kat, how could he do this? He's not going to win." Shut up, guys. Let's unpack this here, okay? The United States is among the only country, one of the only countries in the world that says that if neither parent is a citizen or even lawfully in the country, their future children are automatically citizens. We're the only country who does this, and it's not humane, because what happens to the kid, right? If the parents are deported, what happens? Do they have to make the decision if the kid is going to go with them? Do they leave the kid here? All kinds of things. So Trump, in a video, I'm going to play this video for us, just a little bit of it, because it's about 4 minutes or so long. But I want to share it with you because he talks about defending the Constitution. And this is why President Donald Trump is going to and is the leading primary GOP primary contender, because he actually defends the Constitution. And everybody knows that the president takes an oath and says, "Hey, you know, we have to defend. I'm going to defend the Constitution." So here's Donald Trump talking about his new policy and what he wants to implement once he's president in 2024.
These millions of illegal border crossers have entered the country unlawfully. All of their future children will become automatic U.S. citizens. Can you imagine? They'll be eligible for welfare, taxpayer-funded health care, the right to vote, chain migration, and countless other government benefits, many of which will also profit the illegal alien parents. This policy is a reward for breaking the laws of the United States and is obviously a magnet helping draw the flood of illegals across our borders. They come by the millions and millions and millions. They come from mental institutions. They come from jails, prisoners, some of the toughest, meanest people you'll ever see. The United States is among the only countries in the world that says that even if neither parent is a citizen nor even lawfully in the country, their future children are automatic citizens the moment the parents trespass onto our soil. As has been laid out by many scholars, this current policy is based on a historical myth and a willful misinterpretation of the law by the open borders advocates. There aren't that many of them around. It's amazing. Who wants this? Who wants to have prisoners coming into our country? Who wants to have people who are very sick coming into our country, people from mental institutions coming into our country. And come they will. They're coming by the thousands, by the tens of thousands.
So he goes in and he announces that he wants to do an executive order that prevents birthright citizenship for children of parents who are illegal immigrants. We know the disaster at the border. We know this disaster. We know what's happening with the work visas, 180 days after asylum, right? You can apply for these work visas, and then after applying for this asylum, your court date could be years and years and years and years and years down the road to seek asylum here and to get asylum in the country. And then you get these temporary work visas 180 days after the asylum claim, and it's just a mess. People are seeking asylum after being in multiple countries. And the way the asylum law actually goes, you have to apply for asylum and seek asylum in the country that is the first country that is safe. That's the way asylum law is, international law lays it out. If you are in a country, the first country you are in that is safe, then you can make an asylum claim there. If you're in a war-torn country or something like that and you seek asylum in a different country, then you can make an asylum claim there. What's happening is immigrants, illegal immigrants, they're going country to country to country to country to try to get here to the United States, and then they make their asylum claim here. That's not how the asylum law works, international law. I do need to take a break, but folks, people are losing their minds. They've got Trump derangement syndrome again. Trump had a similar policy idea back in 2019, saying at the time that the U.S. should get rid of the automatic citizenship that comes with being born here on American land, in the event that if parents of this child that's born here on the American land are not legally here themselves. Now, with this executive order, he says that one parent, if the one parent is legally here and is a citizen, then they can have a citizenship then. And I want to get into the 14th Amendment here because people are saying that he's in violation of the 14th Amendment or whatever, which is totally untrue. Actually, Donald Trump is defending the 14th Amendment, and I did some research on this. I read the 14th Amendment. I read some primary documents, some court law from some court cases, Dred Scott versus Sanford, back in 1857, which is why the 14th Amendment exists. And I'm going to read this for you because it's so important to understand because you've been lied to. Your public school probably lied to you, and they said that the 14th Amendment gives you the right to be a citizen, or affords you the right to be a citizen if you're just born here. And that's not true. There's two criteria you have to meet to be a United States citizen underneath the 14th Amendment. I've got the facts. Next. Yes. Good morning. Thanks so much for joining me. I love this. This is funny. Yeah, I don't know if you guys have picked up on the Twitter relationship between Elon Musk and AOC, but I feel like ours is pretty similar, Colson. I think you have a crush on me, as Althea put it. You seem to really like the show, which is great, and I'm glad you're here. I got to take this phone call. We'll be back here in just a second. Okay, folks, we are going to be coming back here in about 30 seconds, and what I want to do is unpack for you everything 14th Amendment. I did a lot of homework on this, and I was worried about bringing it to you because it's not like traditional news or anything like that, and I know that they're going to be talking about this. They're going to say that Donald Trump, he's unconstitutional. He hates the Constitution, and that's just not true. Actually, he's defending the Constitution, and he's defending the 14th Amendment. So I'm going to talk about it here right now. The 14th Amendment. It's so very important, and I was worried about bringing this here to you this morning because, you know, it's not, it is news because Donald Trump, he released a video and he was speaking about his policy, how he wants to end birthright citizenship for illegal immigrants. And people automatically, they're like, oh my gosh, that's so controversial. He's never going to be elected president. How could he do this? First off, stop it, relax. He is the leading contender in the GOP primary, and he announced this new policy initiative, and actually it's a great initiative, and he is the only candidate right now and has been somebody who is a defender of the Constitution. And the way the Constitution lays out the 14th Amendment, it's pretty flippin' clear that you have to meet at least two criteria to be considered a citizen, a United States citizen. And I want to dig into that here a little bit. I did a lot of homework on this. I couldn't sleep last night, folks, to be honest with you. Sometimes you just have those nights I couldn't sleep. Decided to do a lot of homework. So I'm very excited to bring you this. He had a very similar policy idea back in 2019, Trump did. So let's stop with the whole, he's being racist, he's unconstitutional, blah, blah. He has been talking about this since 2019. That's been 4 years now, folks. And saying at that time, he said, hey, the U.S. should get rid of automatic citizenship that comes by virtue of being born on American land in the event that parents of the child born here in America are not legally here themselves. So under his new policy, he says that one parent has to legally be here themselves. As a baby, you're born here, you don't enter into a contract, and that's essentially what the 14th Amendment is. It's a contract between you, the citizen, and the United States, and you have to essentially pledge allegiance to each other. The 14th Amendment is really beautiful, actually. And sorry, my nerd is coming out. My nerd is showing. I get real excited about history when I dig into it. So Michael Anton, he is the lecturer and he's a researcher over at Hillsdale College, and he's a former national security official of the Trump administration. He's got this amazing op-ed out there, folks, and I suggest you read it. But it helped me understand why Trump is doing this and how illegal immigrant enthusiasts have corrupted and have not interpreted the 14th Amendment correctly. So, the notion that simply being born here in the geographical limits of the United States automatically grants you U.S. citizenship is completely absurd. Historically, constitutionally, philosophically, practically, it's just an absurdity. The purpose of the 14th Amendment was to resolve the question of citizenship, historically, right, for newly freed slaves. So let's go back to the 1800s following the Civil War. Actually, these southern states insisted that, hey, these states had a right to deny citizenship to freed men. So these southern states, they were like, no, we don't want the citizens here, or we don't want black people here. We don't want them to have citizenship here. Black Americans can't be citizens. That's what these southern states were saying at the time of following the Civil War. Sad, disgraceful, awful. In 1857, actually, Dred Scott versus Sanford, there was a decision made in this case. And it said that no black American could ever be a United States citizen. Isn't that awful? That's just so sad. I can't believe we were there. I'm so glad that we've progressed in society, and we are nowhere near there. We should be celebrating that. But in the 1857, that's Dred Scott versus Sanford. Now, the constitutional amendment, the reason why the 14th Amendment exists is so that way they could overturn Dred Scott and define the precise meaning of American citizenship, actually. So the definition here, and I'm just going to read the 14th Amendment for us. Bare bones, this is what the 14th Amendment says. All persons born or naturalized, now that's lawful immigration, naturalized lawful immigration, born or lawful immigration goes through a legal process in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and state wherein they reside. So this is important because it clarifies a couple of things. One, it shows that federal citizenship actually supersedes the state level. So at the time, southern states, they said, no, we can deny citizenship. And this constitutional amendment says, nope, my federal citizenship trumps your state citizenship. So you can't get rid of these freed slaves. They are citizens in your state. You can't do that. So that's one. This amendment clarifies that. Second, the amendment is very specific in the two criteria that it takes to become an American citizen. One, birth or naturalization, i.e. lawful immigration, a legal process. Number two, being subject to the United States jurisdiction. We know now what the framers meant by that because they told us, and it's really kind of cool. So I actually have a senator from Illinois back in the Dizzy 1800s, Lyman Trumbull of Illinois. He was a principal figure in drafting the amendment, and he defines subject to the jurisdiction as, quote, not owing allegiance to anybody else. That is, to no other country or tribe. Then later we have another senator from Michigan. His name is Jacob Howard. And he was the sponsor of this clause in the 14th Amendment. And he further clarified the amendment, and he explicitly says, hey, look, actually, this explicitly excludes from citizenship people born in the United States who are foreigners, aliens, who belong to families of ambassadors or foreign ministers. So there could be arguments made here. I'm not suggesting that this is the end-all, be-all, but there definitely are arguments about what subject to the jurisdiction of the United States means. For decades now, we have U.S. officials led by immigrant enthusiasts in and out of government, nonprofit, NGOs. They've acted as though subject to the jurisdiction simply means subject to American law. Now, that is true for any tourist who comes here. If you're a tourist, you're subject to American law and you have to preside within our laws here. But the framers of the 14th Amendment added the jurisdiction clause to precisely distinguish between people to whom the United States owes citizenship to and to those who it does not owe citizenship to. It distinguishes that line. Who do we owe citizenship to? Freed slaves? Yes, definitely qualify. The children of immigrants who came here illegally clearly don't. If you read the 14th Amendment, birthright citizenship is a great magnet for illegal immigration. It's a problem. People come here in Southern California. There's actually something called maternity hotels where these pregnant Chinese tourists will come and have their babies here so they get citizenship as in the United States. And nowhere else in the world can you say, oh, let's fly there, have our baby, because the silly government will give him or her American citizenship. The problem could be fixed. Congress, right, if they could just clarify it with some legislation, that would be great. Say that the children of non-citizens are not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, and thus those citizens under the 14th, or they're not citizens under the 14th Amendment. I wish they would just clarify this. But given our open borders enthusiasts, the people who are running the Congress right now, I don't think that this is going to happen because Republicans and Democrats, they don't read. Right? If I can figure it out, you can figure it out. Okay. I'm just saying, like, it's not rocket science. It's just reading, at a third grade level, really. The problem can be fixed very easily. but they won't fix it. So this is why it falls on Trump. And Trump has this way about him where he just puts it all on his shoulders, and I haven't seen any other candidate do this at a local level, national level, state level. I haven't seen any other candidate say, you know what, I got to defend the Constitution. I have to do this. Because why shouldn't a president act to defend the meaning of the 14th Amendment? Just like everybody else in government, you have to swear an oath to defend the Constitution, and Donald Trump is doing that with this new policy. I've got to take a break, but I'm so glad that I broke that down for you. I hope that was helpful. Not sure if it was helpful, but I sure hope that you'll let me know by texting in at 309-451-9299. If you want an entire show, I can do an entire show on the 14th Amendment. There's so much more to it, or an entire show on immigration if you think that would be helpful. But Republicans out there, you need to relax, okay? You need to relax, and you need to read the 14th Amendment before you start white-knuckling it and saying, oh, that Donald Trump, he's never going to win. How could he say things so controversial? Relax. He's not really saying anything all that controversial when you break it down. All right, 309-451-9299. I got to go. I'll be back on the other side. Okay, good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate you. Be sure to text in and be a part of the show. Yes, we always have a bunch of trolls. That's the beauty of the city's page, isn't it? I mean, without the trolls, come on. Is it even that fun? I love the trolls. They make me so happy. City's 92.9. I noticed, Kat. I mean, every day he's here. Colson, you got a crush on me, pal. Yeah. So, speaking of which, AOC, Elon Musk, there's this ongoing joke on Twitter that Elon Musk and AOC, they're in some sort of crush with each other, which is kind of funny. So I'm going to be talking about AOC's tweet, because she's warning her followers about this parody account, which is really funny. Now, we here at Cities, we have multiple parody accounts. Trolls create them on Twitter and things like that. And I've reported them to Twitter, and actually I have gotten them taken down because they fall outside of the Twitter terms and services. So I know way too much about YouTube terms and services and Twitter terms and services because the censorship is insane. So we have had trolls make parody accounts before, and I've asked them to be taken down. But I know I can have them taken down because what a lot of these parody accounts do, they try to take the logo. So the logo here on the wall behind me, you can't take people's logo and try to profit off of it yourself. That is against copyright or some sort of law. Where you can't take somebody's logo and try to profit off of that logo yourself. And that's what a lot of these parody accounts were doing, because we are a business and not like a politician or a public figure. There's no one politician or public figure who, if there were parody accounts of me, that would be a different story. Now, if you take the brand and you parody it and you try to make money off of it, which is what these accounts were doing, then you can take those down. And Twitter will take those down. So AOC is calling for the removal of this parody account, and it's a parody account of her. So she's a politician. You can do this sort of thing. And I think that this parody account is actually pretty respectful in the way they went about this, because they actually label their parody account, which not a lot of parody accounts do that. A parody account. So for an example, the Babylon Bee, right? They're a parody account. They don't really label themselves. They say it's a satirical website, and that's not it's obviously parody, right? Or obviously satirical, like The Onion, Those are obviously satirical accounts when you read it, but they don't label themselves as satirical or as like that. Nowhere does it say the Babylon Bee is a satirical account. It's just, yeah, it should be known that the Babylon Bee is satirical, and it shouldn't have to be spelled out for people. Now, this account actually did mark itself as parody, which I thought was very respectful, actually. And what's really funny is they are making tweets that sound like AOC. So she's worried that her followers will actually take this for her being the one tweeting this out, which is really funny and says a lot about her, because it's like, okay, if there's a parody account and you're tweeting, and it's tweeting things that you would actually tweet yourself, then you need to reevaluate why you would be tweeting something like that and why it's so funny to people. So AOC, big man. Also, Chick-fil-A, woke. I'm so sad. That was the one place I could go, and, the chicken nuggets just taste better, knowing that it came from, a Christian conservative business, and they went woke. Of all places, Chick-fil-A. And when I say went woke, we have Chick-fil-A's Dan Cathy coming out there and saying that white men should be bending down and shining the sneakers and the shoes of black men. That's what we should be doing as white people, is bending down and shining the shoes of black people. I just explained the 14th Amendment to you. I explained the Civil War, the Dred Scott case, how terrible it was, where we had Southern Democrats who were against black Americans being citizens, and we had people who were fighting for citizenship of black Americans, and they created the 14th Amendment, which is actually a very beautiful thing. And that was back in 1857. The reason why I bring that up is because we have to realize how far we've come. If we keep looking down and shining the shoes of people and not looking up and looking how we can progress in society instead of constantly being reminded of whatever this white guilt is or shame, how are we to move on and be better? I don't know. The Chick-fil-A guy was crazy for saying that. AOC, she's big mad, folks, because there's a parody account out there of her. This is City's 92.9, The Morning Buzz. My name's Kat Peterson. Thanks so much for tuning in. You can text in at 309-451-9299. And I've got a packed show for you. Got a couple of more stories I want to share. AOC, her melting down over this, this parody account. Pretty funny stuff. I do want to talk about it, but first I do want to talk about these 50 teenagers jumping these two Marines, because this is sad, and definitely not the way to acknowledge Memorial Day, and it happened over Memorial Day weekend. Not a way to acknowledge Memorial Day, at least not for you, not for me, or anybody else who isn't a sucker punching little rat. That's what these 50 teenagers plus, I don't know, these videos are quite insane. They're sucker punching little rats, and they didn't get the switch when they were kids. They had no discipline, I'm sure, when they were children, and it shows. So here's what happened in surprise, California over the past weekend. There were some fireworks, and these teenagers were blasting these fireworks off into a crowd of people, which is not good, right? So we had Hunter Antonio, and he was one of these Marines attacked by these groups of teenagers. And he said, look, you need to stop with the fireworks, man. Stop harassing people. And then all of a sudden, the two Marines who approached these kids, they got hit with some debris. They got hit from behind by one of these thugs. And then all of a sudden, a beatdown started happening. And they ganged up on these two Marines on Memorial Day weekend. So these Marines, of course, were overwhelmed, and they could only turtle up. They scrunched down, they tucked their heads in, they tried to protect themselves. And they did that until two other bystanders ran over, broke up the fight. Now, the local news there in California, some of them, they're saying that the Marines only suffered minor injuries and estimated to like 10 to 30 teenagers who were involved in this beatdown. But there were other people or other publications saying that this looks about more like 50 teenagers who were involved in this incident. I've looked at this. No arrests have been made yet, but the Orange County Sheriff Department, they are continuing to investigate this matter, and they said that all the individuals responsible and who can be identified in videos will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Good. Upon the capture of the assailants, I'm going to suggest this. I would not press charges. What I would suggest is that we force these teenagers, these hooligans, these thugs, to face off one-on-one with these Marines. Do a one-on-one situation without their 49 other friends jumping in. And, yeah, we'll see what happens. I think that that's a proportional response. It's a fair fight then. Yeah. That's my 2 cents on it. I just can't believe the teenage youth in America nowadays. I mean, this is something that we're seeing in Tinley Park. There was this carnival. It was a carnival. Actually, it was an armed forces carnival where kids, parents, they all came together for rides and food and fun. And all of the money went to charitable organizations there in Tinley Park in Illinois. My dad used to work in Tinley Park and used to go there all the time. And all of these teenagers, they started brawling out at this carnival. They brawling each other, and they canceled the carnival. They canceled the festival, which is wild. And then we have Chicago, of course, where these teenagers, for days on end, they were rioting in the streets, jumping on police cars. What is going on in teenagers nowadays? AOC, she tweeted this out yesterday. FYI, there's a fake account out there impersonating me and going viral. The Twitter CEO engaged it, boosting visibility. It's releasing false policy statements and gaining spread. I'm assessing with my team how to move forward. In the meantime, be careful about what you see. Okay, AFC, chill out. You're melting down. It's weird. I'll be back. This is pretty hilarious. I'm going to be back, talk about the tweet, talk about the parody account because it's kind of funny. And I followed it this morning. Yes, I did. I'll be back. This is The Morning Buzz. Be sure to tune into the live stream on Facebook, YouTube. We're on Rumble. We're on Twitter. I'm there. Yes, you're talking about the teenagers, right, Jacqueline? I'm glad you brought it up. 99.5% of it is cultural, yes. So in the videos, it's very clear it's black teenagers. I'm just going to say it. And I don't even know, cultural, yes. I think it has a lot to do with fatherless homes. 85% of our incarcerated in the United States come from fatherless homes. So, yeah. I think it's a reasonable conclusion here. If you grow up without a father, you're more likely to commit crimes. If you grow up without an authority figure in your life, without some sort of discipline in your life, then you're going to grow up to be a hooligan who decides it's cool or thinks that you think it's cool to beat up on Marines or old women or children. Now, I actually have this song lyric from Jason Aldean. And this just goes to show you country music is pretty cool. I like country music. This is the song lyrics. I'll just read them for you. Carjack an old lady at a red light. Pull out a gun on an owner of a liquor store. You think it's cool. Well, act a fool. If you, cuss out a cop, spit in his face, stomp on a flag, light it up. Yeah, you think you're tough. Well, try that in a small town. Yeah, well, small towns, they have traditionally a good male presence, a male presence, or an authority presence. You know, me growing up in a small town, we all knew each other. If I acted out of line, I know. If I was at a parent's house, that parent would be calling my mom, telling my mom that I was acting out of line at their house. It was all very close knit, and you didn't get very far if you were acting out of line in a small town. And I like that song from Jason Aldean. You know, I tried pulling that stuff in a small town and see what happens. In these more inner cities, you commit these kinds of crimes, you get away with it. I would love to see this happen in some sort of small town, because that wouldn't stand for some sort of or in a small town. So we're going to be back here. We're going to talk about AOC. Got a couple of things I want to hit on Chick-fil-A going woke. Let's check out the breaking news today, shall we? Okay, so I'm looking up some breaking news. Let's see what's going on here. The LA Dodgers pitcher releases a statement slamming the team's decision to honor this anti Christian drag nun organization, which is really amazing, because yesterday I told you about Sam Britton. He's the guy that was actually stealing luggage, allegedly. He's on trial. He was a Biden official. He was working in the nuclear waste program. Sam Britton is like a transgender type guy, cross-dresser, I don't know. And he was stealing women's luggage from airports, which is really kind of funny, because he was not only a member of the drag nuns group, but he was a leader of the drag nuns group. But now we have a statement from the pitcher of the LA Dodgers, and he has said that he's not cool with the decision to honor anti-Christian drag nuns. Good morning. This just in. I was sharing with our Facebook Live folks. You can tune in on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Rumble. I'm also on Twitter. The Morning Buzz with Kat. This just in. A LA Dodgers pitcher. Get this. He is releasing a statement slamming the team's decision to honor this anti-Christian drag nun organization. I told you a lot about the organization yesterday. Founded by kind of really Sam Britton, which is really kind of a weird coincidence. Sam Britton, that name might sound familiar to you, because Sam Britton was the guy stealing ladies' luggages. He was stealing people's clothes from the airport, and he was fired from his position as a nuclear waste program czar under the Biden administration, because he is awaiting trial on grand larceny. He was stealing women's clothes from the airport. So the LA Dodgers pitcher, good on you for releasing this statement. He's disappointed with the MLB, and he's disappointed to see the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, is the name of the drag nun group, being honored as heroes at the Dodger Stadium. Many of their performances are blasphemous, and their work only displays hate and mockery of Catholics and the Christian faith. I understand playing baseball is a privilege and not a right. My convictions in Jesus Christ will always come first. Good on you. His name is Blake Terenin, I think is how I pronounce that. Good on you. It's always great to see people, not bending the knee. Like that other Christian MLB player who originally posted something about the biblical perspective of why you should be boycotting Target and Bud Light if you are a practicing Christian. And then he comes out later, bends the knee, and does like almost a hostage-style video where he's forced to apologize for sharing a video about biblical perspective. So I did want to end today on AOC tweeting this out. She's big mad that there's a parody account out there. It's marked parody, so I don't understand what her issue is. But she says, FYI, there's a fake account out there impersonating me, and it's going viral. So it's pretty hilarious that she's upset about a marked parody account because honestly, this is why I think she's upset about the parody account. People are listening to it rather than her. And she's just upset that her checkmark is gray on Twitter and this checkmark for the parody account is blue because you can purchase Twitter Blue. So basically what the parody account does, it tweets out things that are really close to AOC's actual tweets. So one example of the parody account, an example of what they tweeted out, here it is, printing money is the only way out of inflation. That's completely believable that AOC might say something like that, being that she's a socialist Marxist who wants to spend us into oblivion. That's going to do it for us here on the Morning Buzz. Tomorrow morning, I'll be back 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. bright and early. Don't miss it. Glenn Beck is up after me, and then Dan Bongino. Have a great day.